Hi everyone! In this video I'm going to show you how to make an exquisite cake using just ingredients from your local grocery, and you don't even need the expensive silicone molds. I also will show you 3 ways how you can decorate your cake. This video contains lots of details so you can success on your kitchen. I hope you're going to have fun making this cake, but more important, going to enjoy the flavors. Some extra tips and even more ideas at the end of this video. So let's prepare the meringue sponge. This is very airy, light in texture and delicious because it contains coconuts, and because we also add in almond meal, it would be very tender. We are going to start with the egg whites, and I always add a pinch of cream of tartar, or you can add a little bit of any lemon acid, a little bit. It just adds stability. If you don't have it, it's not crucial. It just makes result more even, so I prefer to add it. Egg whites prefer to be at room temperature, and you start with whipping on a lower speed, and then you just increase it to the maximum until the meringue is done. With the sugar, I prefer to add a little bit at the start, and then as soon as I see that the bubbles are forming, I'm adding more and more sugar so it's not sink to the bottom of the mixing machine, but incorporates all of the air. After we made the meringue, we are going to mix in all our dry ingredients. So dry ingredients, I've sifted together icing sugar, flour, almond meal, and desiccated coconut. Depending on what kind of coconut you can find, if you don't have a desiccated, if you don't have super fine coconut, you can actually put it in a food processor and just blitz it enough so it's more fine consistency. So let's start with the meringue. So at this stage we are going to add more sugar. When we have more foamy structure like this, we're going to add a little bit more sugar. You don't need to stop the mixer, you can just add it straight away. And when all sugar in, we can whip it on the maximum speed. So that's about 6 minutes. We have meringue like this. We can see that it's glossy. It's not stiff peaks, but it still can hold the shape. So that's quite enough. So we're going to work with this consistency today. And we are going to mix our dry ingredients into the mixing bowl. So we'll start with a 1/3, even probably less, 25% of the volume. And we're going to rotate and mix at the same time. So it's these kind of movements. We just need to incorporate the dry ingredients. So again, maybe another third. And one more. And the last part. This consistency, so it's not runny. If you get too runny, that probably you will mix in too much. You can still spread it and bake it, but you will not get that proper thickness of the sponge. Depending on your preference, how you would like to spread your meringue, I usually prefer the piping bag. In this case, I can pipe it as thick as I want. I see the result straight away, compared to when you put everything on a silicone mat and spread with a spatula. Sometimes you get uneven areas, or sometimes you're trying to make it as even as possible and you knock out lots of air. If you're going to use the piping bag, you will just need a nozzle with a 10 millimeters. amount of this meringue is usually enough to spread on a standard size silicone mat. It's roughly 30 by 40. So you'll just pipe with the lines. This is meringue based sponge, so it doesn't require higher temperature. It's better lower temperature and a bit longer time, so it still stays like chewy. So oven is preheated, 150 fan first, and we're going to put it in the middle of the oven. And we're going to check it in 10 minutes just in case our oven is a bit more hot. Meanwhile, let's prepare the raspberry jelly. So we will need cold water and gelatin. We're going to sprinkle gelatin on cold water, not warm, and then let it bloom until it fully absorbs all of the gelatin granules. I found that it's easy to make with a more shallow bowl like this, so it's not staying as a lump. It mixes much easier. Very simple recipe. We are going to use sugar and cornstarch. You mixed this before, so the particles of the cornstarch is mixed with the sugar. Let's start with slowly heating up the fruits. So when your fruits already defrosted or they are quite soft, you can start to add your sugar and cornstarch mixture. You cannot add this mixture when the fruits is hot, because it will cook straight away cornstarch, and that it would be lumps. You will have a different result if you add into the hot puree. Also, you don't need to boil that too much, because if you're going to boil it for more than like 5 minutes, the cornstarch, the chains between the cornstarch start to break. So all of the gelatinization will be lost. You can find the cornstarch or you can find potato starch. They are very similar starches. If I remember right, the potato one you can cook longer without breaking the chain of gelatinization, but we don't need to cook it longer. We just need approximately 1 minute boiling. That's enough to cook the starch, so you cannot taste it like a grain, because if it's not cooked properly, if it's undercooked, you can feel like a grains, like a sand texture, and it also will not hold the jelly. So that's already start to boil. We need just 1 minute. It's better to constantly mix in it. After we cooked our puree, we're going to add the gelatin. So the gelatin is bloomed, it absorbs all of the water, and we're going to add to the hot puree and just briefly mix it in so the gelatin is dissolved in the puree. I'm just going to let it stay on the bench for a while just to cool it down while I'm cooking my sponge. Approximately 15 minutes in the oven. We are looking for like a pale, a little bit golden color. We don't need it very brown. We don't need to overbake it. lightly pressing and it's spring back, it means that it's done. While it's cooling down, I will explain you the whole idea of this recipe. So I do love the silicone molds. Sometimes they are tricky, sometimes they are just expensive, sometimes you buy one and not get much motivation to make anything else because they are specific shape and it's a one shape only and not much room for imagination. So we're going to use a very simple thing that you can find at home or in the grocery again. The whole idea is you can make something really tasty, beautiful and exquisite using very simple things. And this is, for example, I'm going to use tins from the yogurt. I will make two of them, potentially different sizes, different ideas. We'll need a ring cutter that is, you can fit inside and still have some room on the outside. And I will need two of them. So let's say two sizes. First ring is 7.5 centimeters and another ring is 7. We still need to cool down the sponge, but the idea is that you need to just press it deep enough so you cut it, and then you're going to put the second layer. You're going to pour the raspberry jelly on top. So it's 1 centimeter for the sponge and approximately 1 centimeter for the jelly, or as you prefer, you can put more. So that would be the first idea. Basically, that would be a white chocolate mousse. Then we're going to put one layer, which is basically double layer sponge and raspberry. Then we're going to put more white chocolate mousse and another double layer of sponge and jelly. So the second idea, that we are going to have more jelly, but we are going to build it as a tube. So basically this will go inside. We're going to fill this, maybe not full, but approximately 3/4. That's how cheap your silicone molds for your cakes can be. Basically you're just repurposing something that will go just in the wastage. And we will need to flip it over on the other silicone mat, so it would be just easier to peel off. Start with the one corner so it's nice and easy and we're not damaging the sponge. So we need just to peel it off so it's easy to remove after we pour the jelly, but I will need the flatter part on the bottom. Got it. So that's a thickness that we've got after baking. And we cut second disc. So we just need to pour approximately 1 centimeter of the jelly on top of each sponge. We're going to put this in the freezer until it's fully frozen. I'm going to fill a small one for the insert. And it goes in the freezer until it's fully frozen. So we're going to make white chocolate mousse. And this is very simple, easy to make, easy to follow recipe. We'll start again with the gelatin. We need to bloom it. So again, that's a cold water, and I have a powdered gelatin. While gelatin is blooming, I'm just going to check the previous sponge and jelly combination. Now we are going to unmold it, and I would assume that would be easy just with your fingers. You just need to warm up a little bit sides of the rings. You can also use water, but I would assume maybe like a tea towel dumped in the water, but because it's not a large size, it should easily come out. Yeah, so that's a combination that goes inside of our cake. Let's do the same for the all rings. Yep, so that's done. Sometimes you can see the condensation on top. When you're going to assemble the cake, you will need to wipe it, so there is no like a condensation, there is no water under, but that's unmolded. This process is done. We're going to put this back in the freezer so it stays frozen. So when you're going to use thermometer, it's very important to understand that you've attached it, or depending on what kind of thermometer that you have, that you're measuring the liquid, not the bottom of the pan, because bottom of the pan would be temperature much higher than the liquid itself. So make sure that your thermometer is not sitting on the bottom, it sits somewhere in the middle of the mixture or cream. Heat up to 82 degrees, dilute the gelatin, pour it on the chocolate, let it melt a little bit, blitz it, add the liquor, and it's done. We're cooling down this to 28 degrees, and while it's cooling down, we're going to whip the cream. That is part 2. That can sit for like 1 minute. The chocolate slowly will melt, and we will blitz it straight away after that. Meanwhile, just prepare your mixture. So we're going to use a cold cream just straight from the fridge. It's recommended 35% fat. You can go as less as 33, but not less, otherwise it would be not possible to whip it. There is a pure cream and there is a thickened cream. Pure cream is basically just cream, as it says. Thickened cream contains thickening agent, and it's usually gelatin. And I'm going to whip it on a low speed just to make lots of small bubbles. They will keep the texture much better than if I would start whipping on a maximum speed straight away. While I'm whipping the cream, I'll just put it aside. I will blitz the chocolate and the first cream. So it maybe takes just 20 seconds to blitz the chocolate. After you've blitzed with the cream, you can add your liquor. I decided to make this mousse cake with the raspberry liquor. You can also use, for example, coconut liquor. You can also add just vanilla paste. So when our whipped cream reached this kind of consistency, I've cooled down this to 28.5 degrees, 29 potentially, because that thermometer is not quite precise. And now I'm going to mix 1/3 of the whipped cream into the white chocolate, and I'm going to repeat that until all of the cream is incorporated. Our mousse is ready. I'm going to just pour it into the mold, and that would be easier way to assemble it. So make sure that you have your molds prepared, and make sure that you have your inserts prepared. So I need approximately 20%. Then I need a smaller insert, and you just put it inside. Then you need to add a little bit more mousse. And then you can put the second one, the larger. And I'm going to add just a little bit of mousse. I'm not going to fill it full. For the second one, I'm going to put lots of mousse inside because I'm going to put this kind of weird insert. Just make sure that it's not much condensation, and then put it inside. White chocolate mousse. And once it's done, I'm going to put this insert inside. And I'm going to leave it as well as it is. That would be my size of the cake. So 2 of these ready. And I'm going to have a smaller cup, just a 500 grams, and I'm going to utilize my smaller inserts. So just repeating the same, maybe 1/3. Then just make sure you don't have lots of condensation on top. You just put it inside. Arrange it in the middle. A little bit more. And I can show you here the condensation. So that's basically water. So if you don't want your layers to slip from the cake when you cut it, you need to remove it. Cool, so this is done. This is now goes to the freezer. So that's a double recipe. For the double recipe, it was enough to fill 2 1 kilo tubs, 1 500 mils, and I have some leftovers. So usually this leftover that I have, I will pour on another silicone mold and use it for the next cake or next tart. Now we're going to make a crispy layer for the cake. It adds crunchy texture. It's moderately sweet. I have white chocolate with a little bit of neutral oil. You just need to microwave chocolate in a burst of 10 seconds, few times until it's fully melted. Then we just add in oil and just mix in. Very straightforward recipe. Then I have here the rice pops. I'm going just to mix it until it's combined. So I have my frozen mousse cake, and I'm just going to pour probably 2 centimeters layer over here, and then I will just press it firmly. Try to make it as flat as possible, and then back into the freezer. Another way how to use it is to spread on a silicone mat. And spread it thinly. Because we have rice pops that covered in a chocolate, after cooling down, it will keep the crispiness inside, so the moisture is not getting inside. So basically you can use this recipe not just for the base for the cake, but also as an insert for the cake. And I have my smaller version of the cake, which I'm going to just fill it. It will solidify probably within 5 to 10 minutes in the freezer, so after that you can start unmolding and decorating your cake. Now let's make a mirror glaze. I have here water and glucose. We need to put the liquid ingredients first, then we add sugar. So basically it's two types of sugar and water. I also prefer to have my ingredients in order that I'm going to use it. So here I have my condensed milk, my gelatin, I've already hydrated with water, and here I have my white chocolate. You can use any white chocolate. I didn't try with the compound chocolate, might work as well. Also, while I'm heating up sugars, although it would be quite quick, we will need obviously the stick blender, and then we will need a tray and something like a cooling rack when you're going to put your cake and pour the glaze over top. 104, and that's enough. Then we need to cool it down with our condensed milk. Just stir till it's fully dissolved. Then we add gelatin. And also stir till it's fully dissolved. And the final step, we're going to pour this over white chocolate. Now we need to blitz. Depending on your blender, sometimes you have a usual domestic blender that have like sides over here. That's when you get your air pocket. So try to just insert under the angle so that air pocket will push out by our mixture. Or you can make movements like this, like trying to push it with a force. That's when all of the air bubbles come out. Our glaze is ready. It's just a clear, not clear, but it's a white, off-white mirror glaze. I will glaze one cake with this color, and I will use a crimson color, red color for second cake. So that would be plenty to glaze, let's say two large cakes. Now we need to cool it down to 32 degrees Celsius. It's currently 55, so it will take time. You can put it in a fridge and time to time stir it so it's no film on the top. Now let's unmold our frozen mousse cake. I'm going to unmold these cakes and put it back in a freezer, because when we unmold in cake, we will eventually melt a little bit surface. But when we're going to use a mirror glaze, we need a very frozen, firm surface to do that. Basically, you don't need to make a mirror glaze. If you want to skip, this cake would be perfectly fine even without mirror glaze. But I'm going to show you how to glaze it with a mirror glaze and how to use the different decoration to make your cake look stunning. We just need, very similar to our layers, just need to a little bit warm up the sides and the bottom part of the cake so it's detached. You can also use a hot water, just pour it over sides, it will be just faster. But it doesn't take very long to make it. So that's our cake with a crust layer inside. The second one is without that layer, but I'm going to put it and show you the difference, how it looks like when the cake has a larger base. just light pressing on the bottom, and it's here. So it's the second one, and you can see that it's obviously a little bit melted. You can fix it with your finger, you can leave it as it is, because anyway we are going to put the glaze on top. And the small one, this one also with a crust inside. And that's it. It's easy to manipulate when you have the crust like already here, rather than you need a spatula to lift another one. But that's how it looks like. Here we have some sort of like an indent. We can play around with the decoration, but as it is now, it's going into the freezer for maybe 10 minutes just to freeze it completely, to speed up the process of cooling down the mirror glaze. And because I'm going to use a second color, I'm going to use a smaller jar, and I'm going to prepare my second color already. Be careful not to press this button now. Sometimes when you have air bubbles, it's easy to remove them, or trying to remove them just mixing the mirror glaze like this. The bubbles will sit on the side and eventually disappear. I'm going to start with a red or crimson coloring. And in some cases, and this is a good example, like this case, my room temperature now is approximately 24 degrees, so it's quite warm. And because even I was quite quick, I still get condensation on the cake. That's why you can see through the glaze. It's not a fully covering all of the parts, because I can even see the inner part of the cake. In order to fix it, I'm going to put this back in the freezer for just maybe 5 minutes, so this is solidified, and I'm going to pour a second layer of the glaze. Meanwhile, I'm going to collect back the mirror glaze into the jar, because I will use it again. And I'm going to pour straight away second layer. Now I can see much more color. That's not as translucent as it was before. I also didn't add too much coloring, so it's not going to be very deep, rich color. Still would be a half translucent. You can still see the cake, but it's more shiny and it's more vivid colors. For now, I'm just let it drip for maybe 10 minutes. Then I'm going to put in the fridge, and I'm going to put in the fridge for overnight. It's ideally, it will defrost properly. Now let's glaze with a uncolored mirror glaze. Now, because I know that my room temperature is quite high, so when I'm taking cake from the freezer and it's -18 jump to 24, I will have a very clear but condensation on top, which I can feel it because it's like a wet on the cake. That's why the glaze became even more transparent. In this case, you can just use your palms. You can use a paper towel, and you just need to remove it as much as possible. It's fine if our frozen cake will drop to temperature like 16 degrees. let's glaze the cake. Now I can see this result is much better. Even this is not colored glaze, we barely can see the mousse itself, and it's setting nicely. So I'm not going to pour a second layer on this one. I'm going to leave it as it is. We just need to leave it to drip all of the rest of the glaze that we don't need, and then we're going to put it on the base. If you remember, we made a few bases. So the previous cake was with a crunchy base inside already. This one we're going to put on the base, and that base looks like this. So we're going to use the palette knife and transfer cake into this base. I actually do like, despite you can say it's not very professional to use such a simple ingredients, but the rice pops looks perfectly fine. Combined with the white chocolate, it gives a little bit sweetness, because rice pops itself is not sweet, so we need a white chocolate. I've tried with a dark chocolate and it doesn't work itself. It needs to be with something sweeter. But I do like the rustic kind of shape and how it looks like for this kind of small cake. Once this dripped enough, I'm going to transfer onto this base and put in a fridge to defrost overnight, or at least 10 hours. Our cake is ready to be decorated. I think that's most exciting part, because that's how you can be very creative and design your own cake. In my case, this is a coconut and raspberry. I've made the glaze white color and it's all like monotone. That's why I'm going to add more bright colors. So I'm going to use a fresh raspberry to decorate it. I'm going to choose the larger one for the decoration for this side, and I'm going to arrange a smaller one just on top. And that's about it. Our cake is decorated. Now let's cut cake in half and see how our layers looks like. We are going to decorate this cake to look a bit better. I have some toasted coconut flakes. I think it's also somewhere, I've got it from the grocery. So just use your imagination and decorate as you wanna. But I think if you will add these like a spikes, because you can actually push it deeper inside, that will make a quite interesting look. You can also add fresh raspberries, because having a fresh fruit on a cake usually makes it different. Now let's cut our cake and see how the layers looks inside. That was a lot crunch. And the third idea of decoration for the cake is basically very minimum decoration. What I did, I've just dusted with some shredded coconut. I think cake look itself nice. I don't want to have any extra sweetness on the mirror glaze. I don't want to hide my crunchy base layer. I think this is minimalistic, is good on its own. So let's see how it looks inside. Raspberry and seeds. Some people don't like raspberry seeds, and I totally get it. So if you don't want any seeds from the raspberry, you need to defrost your berries before and then use a sieve and just put it through the sieve so you have your seeds removed fully. Just keep in mind that you will need more berries if you're going to remove seeds. Glaze coloring. You will need just a simple water-soluble food coloring that you can find in a grocery. You can also find on different online stores. You don't need to use more expensive oil-soluble. They are for different purpose. You can use it, but it would not be fully dissolved, so you will have a different result. The crunch base. So for this cake, I've made the crunch base in two different ways. One, when I've put inside, and it was quite thick. You can see even on the video that I put some pressure to cut it through. Nothing bad with that. I do enjoy the thick crunchiness, but if you are looking for the more exquisite and delicate and very neat look, make a thinner crunch layer, just the one that I've made when I was spreading. That thickness was just perfect. Uneven layering. So in case you have a situation like I've had with a smaller cake that was glazed in red color, you can see that one of my layers just went on the side. That actually gave me an idea for other cakes. But if you would like to avoid the situation, you just need to wait a little bit more. So the white mousse became a little bit more firmer and your layers stay as you've put it.